My colleagues Arabile Gumede and Simpiwe Ngongona are pulling an all-nighter with me this morning. Then let's cross through to Arabile. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Florence. Well, it certainly is an interesting night to, of course, be pulling that all-nighter. Certainly no complaints on our side, I can assure you of that much. If we take a quick look at that board as well with regards to the results and things that are happening, you mentioned KwaZulu-Natal, of course, and if you take a look at just the main board with the national results themselves, about 136,394 when it comes to the African National Congress and its current standing, 87,848 there for the DN. This is just with a total account there of 274,700. So, of course, things are beginning to perhaps trickle in. We're getting some sentiment around where things currently stand. The party in third at present is the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF. They're sitting at 16,739. And the Freedom Front Plus there, look at that, 12,866. Of course, a lot of that would be based on just the areas in which voting has currently been completed and where exactly. If we just take a look again then at the situations in and around South Africa, this is of course Limpopo, and yes, fine, it is only 0.5% at present with regards to how much those votes have been counted. The National Assembly itself sits at around 4.8%. But let's go back to Limpopo and just see what the situation is like. Only 0.79% there of votes being counted. The ANC currently sitting with nearly half of the support thus far. So that situation is clearly one that is telling a deeper story. Just headed off to the Northern Cape. Of course, this will be one of the provinces where you get a whole lot more done, perhaps a little sooner. They have a total number of voting districts of 707. 150 of those have been counted, so 21.2% completed in that regard. The ANC sitting up with nearly 49% of the support on that front. The DA sitting at 33.18%. Still continuing, of course, with just how things are faring as well. In KwaZulu-Natal, as Florence mentioned as well, 60% there for the African National Congress with 1.17%. Very early days, of course. So, of course, we cannot necessarily call too much on this, but it is just interesting to note that the regions that have currently voted, that have cast their vote thus far, and this is where we currently sit, the EFF sitting in third place in the Eastern Cape, just over 6% of the support there. Any surprises here for you, Ranesh, Mary Harris? Nothing?
Not at all. Like you rightly said, very, very early days.
Yeah.
Like the figures we mentioned earlier on, I think people are tired. The vote counters from the IEC are extremely exhausted. It's been a very, very long day. I think the main results, thicker results, will start flowing in from 5 o'clock later this morning.
Yeah. I know we've mentioned the voter turnout, and I think for me it continues to be one that bothers me quite a bit, because it's the only way we get to actually send out that clear message, right? It's the only way we get to actually say to the government, no, I don't agree with what you've done. I would like somebody else to do it better. Is the message heard when you don't vote?
We looked at some figures earlier where you and I, we looked at the figures of how many people registered. Perhaps you can find that one again.
Yeah, I think let's try to get to that actually.
Everybody in South Africa,
no worries,
that are eligible to vote, everybody that's eligible to vote, only 3/4 are registered to vote.
Yeah.
That's the figure. In other words, only 3 out of every 4 South Africans who are eligible to vote in this country is registered. The other quarter disenfranchise themselves by not going to register.
Yeah. Their message isn't heard, right? They currently sit with a situation where government can't actually tell them, this is what we'll do for you, or what exactly it is your mandate is for us. They're going to sit with an unheard voice.
Yeah, I do think that we as citizens of a country have a responsibility to vote. And it is a responsibility of the government to take our vote seriously.
Yeah.
So if you disenfranchise yourself I don't know. It is just very alien to me to do something like that.
Yeah, my analyst that I had a little bit earlier on in the day during the polls, when the polls were open, was actually saying that not voting could be considered a criminal offence because it should be that kind of serious situation, don't you think, Ranesh?
You know, in Australia, you're supposed to vote. It is a criminal offence if you don't vote. But I don't want to live in a nanny state like that, where they say, this is what you do in the morning and this is what you do in the afternoon, and then you need to go and vote as well. I would rather see it as my privilege and my responsibility to go and vote and do it.
Yeah. Ranesh?
And I think, Arabile, what's very worrying is that if you look at those stats again, between 1994 and the last election in 2014, the difference between the registered population and the voting age population, those over 18 and above, hovered around between 4 and 7 million. The 2019 general elections, that figure between 4 and 7 million has suddenly climbed up to 9 million. And I think that's very, very concerning. Yes, the IEC also has a responsibility. Civic education is needed. But I think political parties need to be more active. They need to go out to communities. Maybe the electoral system needs to change, to ensure that accountability is factored into the equation. Maybe we need a police state like Australia, where it's a criminal offense not to vote and partake in your country's democracy.
Mary Harris just stood up there and went on a little bit surprised at that one. Not what you want necessarily,
no,
but of course we're trying to encourage people to make their decisions.
You are not encouraging people by forcing them.
Agreed.
You are encouraging people by building their confidence. So I think the forcing part is the wrong way to go.
So perhaps it's the parties are doing it wrong by not fulfilling their mandate and doing the right things.
And South Africans are not like that. If you say to us, go in that direction, we might think of 3 or 4 other directions that look a lot better to go into. So rather leave us that little bit of freedom that we can decide whether we want to vote or not, but at least also teach us at school about our responsibilities and not only about our rights.
That's where the 19% eligible voters aged between 18 and 19 are registered. That education from a young age is perhaps not coming through as to the rights of South Africans, the right to vote and the need for it for the country.
And the responsibility. It's not only a right, it's a responsibility as well.
Well, folks, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it this morning. I know it has been a harrowing session, but one of keen interest, of course, and we'll continue to watch out for how things fare, of course. As we've continuously noted, I am joined by my colleague, Simphiwe Ngongwana, who is on the floor here